everybody, this is Norwegian. So Michael Bay, he sometimes can feel like, you know, the Janus, the god with two faces. He mostly has his more silly face when he, you know, makes these juvenile movies filled with juvenile humor, tits and explosions, like your Transformers or your Armageddons or your Bad Boys and your Bad Boys 2 and stuff like that. But sometimes he tried to put on his serious face, and the first time he did that, it didn't go very well. It was when he made Pearl Harbor back in 2001. But 15 years after that, he would actually make a movie that was really good. And despite that, or because of that, it didn't work at the box office for some reason. People just didn't show up for it. Well, we're just getting yet another bad Michael Bay movie, so why bother with this one? Shame, because they missed out on what is not his best movie, but definitely his most serious movie that actually worked. Not on every level, but on most levels. So let's find out what makes this movie so great, and if you think that you are going to like this movie or not. This is my review of 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Bengazi. So after the Libyan civil war, Libya did not transform from a strong dictatorship into a liberal democracy, but it became instead a failed state, such as your, you know, Central African Republic or your Somalia or stuff like that. And it was anarchy, and it was different factions and clans that were, you know, struggling for control over different parts of the country. And still today, I believe that they actually have two acknowledged governments in Libya, and still today the country is basically one of the most dangerous places on earth. Back in 2012, there was an attack on a compound in Benghazi. That was one of the places where most of the fighting took place during the Libyan civil war. It left a dead US ambassador and a bunch of Americans and an unknown number of Libyan militias, because they were attacked by heavily armed militias on September 11th, 2012. And it's not mostly famous for, you know, the actual casualty of the ambassador or the attack itself. It was the fact that the Obama administration was very slow with, you know, calling this thing a terrorist attack, and it was something that they brought up during the presidential election, which was just a few months away at this point. And some people feel that the movie based on this event was some sort of a political statement from Michael Bay, and it may be so and may not be so, but I don't really care about that. I'm more focusing my effort on whether or not this is a good movie or not, and it is a really good movie, and I believe that this is probably actually what did happen. So, what was it that happened, and how did we get there? Well, in Benghazi we have this, you know, compound where we have, you know, the CIA that is hanging out, and we have these 6 ex-military guys who are, you know, protecting them, and, you know, is responsible for, you know, people who come there from afar and stuff like that. And, you know, they butt heads sometimes with their superiors and the CIA chief and, you know, stuff like that. And then, of course, the attack happens, and we get to, you know, follow what happens before that, during that, and a little bit of also after that. Even though, was the thing that happened 5 weeks before the attack really necessary for this plot, or did Michael Bay just wanted to include a good old car chase? I'm not against that idea, because the car chase was excellent. I'm just saying it felt a little bit disconnected to the rest of the story, and it also made the movie a little bit longer than it probably should have been, but we're getting slightly ahead of ourselves. So, let's get out of the things that I did not like about this movie. Now the first thing is pretty obvious. My guess is that when Michael Bay saw the movie Act of Valor, he realized, hey, I can save a ton of money and I can get a lot of authenticity just by, you know, replacing these pampered Hollywood actors with some actual factual soldiers, and you know, problem solved. I have my, you know, 6 guys. And that is a good idea on paper, but the problem is that this is not reenactment. This is motion picture, and all of these guys, they look the same and they act the same, and I couldn't tell them apart. I didn't know who was the one who had 6 kids, and you know, somebody's, you know, making Skype calls back home and stuff like that, and I cannot tell them apart. They're all these Caucasian alpha male dudes with the big bushy beards who are kind of jacked up and are really good in combat, but they don't really stand apart, and that was probably, you know, what they looked like and what they acted like. But I could see a jacked up Miles Teller, I could see a jacked up Jake Gyllenhaal, you know, a Ben Affleck, even an Adam Driver who actually has military background. He could have, you know, played one of these roles. I don't know, but they weren't the most interesting thing about the entire movie. I basically had the same problem with this movie that I had with a movie that I'm sure that Michael Bay absolutely adored and thought, I'm going to make a movie very similar to that one, Black Hawk Down, which actually had a bunch of really big stars and good actors, and I couldn't tell them apart in that movie either. So maybe the casting thing isn't the biggest problem with this movie, but nevertheless, another thing this movie did sort of kind of having a problem with was the fact that it was a little bit too long, and at point things were a bit draggish. And by the way, speaking of the idea of the casting thing, if you're not going to give your 6 main guys, you know, Hollywood treatments, you know, have some veteran actors or you know, famous people as, you know, the side characters. I mean, the head of the CIA did have a Paul Giamatti feel about him. Cast Paul Giamatti in that role. It'll be perfect. Anyway, so what is good about this movie? Pretty much everything else. This movie is intense. This movie is gritty. This movie has fantastic editing. This movie has fantastic sound editing. The action sequence looks absolutely magnificent. We don't have the usual Bayisms. There is a few occasions where it shines through that it's Michael Bay who's doing this movie. Some of the, you know, slow motion sequences, sequences when, you know, the American flag is waving, you know, in the aftermath of you know, the battle in the wind, and we have sequences where, you know, the militias are shooting at the flags. Lots of flag things when I'm thinking about it, but there is a surprisingly low amount of things that reminds you of, hey, this is a Michael Bay movie. So I thought that the script was good. I thought that most of the acting was decent in this movie, and they stayed away from lots of the classical cliches when it comes to, you know, action movies and war movies and stuff like that. Sometimes, on some occasions, there were a couple of stupid lines that was a little bit, oof, did you really say that? Or did you just say that because you know, thought it was going to sound cool? Anyway, so this is an intense and extremely gritty movie that if you like such movies such as Zero Dark 30 or Black Hawk Down, this is a movie right up your alley. By the way, if you're going to compare them, in my opinion, Black Hawk Down at the top, this one in the middle, and Zero Dark 30 at the bottom of those 3. It takes you really into the center of the action. It makes you feel like you are present during the attack on the compound. The movie kind of feels a bit like a movie I saw very recently, Warfare by Alex Garland, which basically had an even better take on what it feels like to be in a combat situation. But this movie was far superior to it because I thought it had a more interesting story, it had a bigger picture, it had the more interesting plot to the whole thing. Warfare is a good movie. This one is a really good movie. So if you like, you know, modern combat types of movies, this is a movie right up your alley. This is a movie that will not appeal to some people, and those people who want to see, you know, the classical Michael Bay thing with, you know, cracking jokes and explosions and what have you, will not have their fulfillment in this movie. But those who want to see a realistic take on what actually probably happened in Benghazi 2012, they will get exactly what they want with this movie. This is not Michael Bay's best movie. This is not a movie that you can rewatch over and over again, like you know, The Island or The Rock or Bad Boys 2 or Six Underground. This is a movie that you will watch once or maybe twice, and you will say, that movie was really good. Michael Bay can sometimes be a very, very good and underrated director. And yeah, that's pretty much what it is. 13 hours. The Secret Soldiers of Bengazi bags an easy 83 points. If the movie could have been a little bit shorter, and if they could have done something about the recasting thing, this could have been an even better movie. And if Michael Bay could have devoted as much attention to details and historical accuracies and grittiness to Pearl Harbor, that movie would have been exceptional. But now he didn't do that, and that's fine. But if you've never seen this movie, I really recommend it. So have you seen this movie or not? Do you think it is good? I'll see you next time for Well So and So reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.